welcome to another edition of Spoken Voices. I'm your host, Nathaniel Brooks, and today I'm going to be the only guest. There are things that's going on in this country that I think really needs to be addressed. So I'd like to call it, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. So I'll start by saying this. I am 58 years old. So I was born in 1961. So the things that I have seen as a young person and all through my adult life, it seemed like things were getting a little bit better in this country. But after the current events that we've seen taking place over the last couple of weeks, and the things that we don't normally talk about that goes about in this country day after day, I thought it was important that our show, which is Spoken Voices, which gives everybody a chance to speak their mind, I thought today that I would sit down and have a discussion with my audience. And hopefully I don't lose some of my audience because of the things I'm about to say. Having seen what transpired with the police officers and, of course, with George Floyd, the horrendous, it seems like, disregard for another human's life, and what happened, the aftermath after this, the protesting and that's going on. I think it's time for us as a country to start re-examining what we're doing and how we're treating our fellow citizens in this country. As I say, I'm 58 years old. So I remember some of Dr. King's marches as a little kid because my mother and father, of course, would watch them and talk about them and discuss it with me, my brother, and my sister. And it seems like none of it has taken root with the older generation of people in this country. As we watch the video of a man's life being drained from him by a law enforcement officer, let me preface this by saying this. I too wore the blue uniform of a correction officer. And as correction officers, we don't have the artillery that the police officers have. We are locked up with inmates who have been, for the most part, tried and convicted in a court of law by their peers, and they are serving time. So we don't have the ability to wait for backup and or don't go into a certain thing because we're in a facility, we're in a building. So I've learned that when I handcuff someone, we were taught a way to maintain that person without going crazy and beating this person. Because I'll tell you, going through training, I've been handcuffed in training. There is not a lot that you can do once you're handcuffed. Okay? If you kick, what are you kicking? Because if you know your procedures, you're behind the person, or on the side of the person, and they have very little ability to do any damage to you. So seeing this guy in the middle of the street in Minneapolis and seeing him on the ground in the prone position with an officer's knee on his throat made no sense to me, because there was also two other officers holding him down. If you have that much compliance from a suspect that basically tried to pawn off a fake $20 bill, he did not assault anybody. He did not try to commit a murder. He was trying to pass off a $20 bill, which is a crime, of course, but it's not a serious crime where you need to basically put somebody on the ground and do bodily harm to them. It's not that type of thing. So watching that as a retired law enforcement officer, it hurt my heart in so many ways I cannot describe, because I know that if it was me who was there, I would be able to do something else. First of all, I would just put him in the car. I wouldn't have had to fight with him, because basically I know how to talk to people, right? Once you're handcuffed, I'm telling you, take it easy. Don't do this. We'll just get in the car. We're going to deal with this problem or whatever. If our officers in the United States are scared of being police officers, if their first instinct is to do bodily harm, shoot, beat, or whatever a suspect, then they need to find another line of work. And that's bottom line. I was watching the news last night, and I saw a 75-year-old man be pushed to the concrete. And it seems like he was either asking a question or saying something. This police officer totally disregarded him. And he was white, both the officer and the 75-year-old gentleman. He was pushed to the ground so hard, and he hit his head on the concrete. Now, blood was coming from his head, but not where he hit. It was coming from his ears, which anybody would know who has any little inkling of seeing medicine or reading about medicine. He was hemorrhaging because his ears were bleeding. The police who pushed him, and about 20 more, walked right past him. It took a National Guardsman to sit and kneel next to the guy. Now, realize this: National Guardsmen protect this country against foreign or domestic terrorists. This was a police officer pushing another citizen and making his ears bleed. If we as a country, and I don't care who you are, if you're Black, Latino, white, Chinese, whatever, but if you're an American citizen and you see this and it does not turn your stomach, it does not make you feel like there is something terribly wrong going on today, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what else you need to see. Police officers' oath, as was ours, was to protect our community, was to protect the citizens of whatever city or state that you are located in. It was our job. Our job was not to beat and ridicule or kill our citizens. That is not our job. It shouldn't be anyone's job. So it's amazing to me to see the vitriol coming from the White House, right? Coming from the White House. I have never in all my life seen anything like this. And me, I'm an independent. I am no Democrat or Republican. I am an independent. I will vote for anybody who seems to have common sense and is willing to help this country. I have never seen anyone with such disregard for his fellow citizens. Now remember this, if you watch the news, they're setting barriers up around the people's house. We call it the White House, but it's not the occupants' residence. They do not own that. No president has ever owned that building. They are voted in, and they're supposed to do the will of the people. And you cannot tell me that what this president is doing is the will of all people. He is the president of even the people who did not vote for him. He's the president of the people who don't like him. He's the president for all. And if we don't start getting leadership from the highest point in this country, we're looking at anarchy. Because I think the average person, again, I'll go back and I'll say this throughout this whole broadcast, right? White, Black, Latino, Chinese, any American citizen will not take this. There is no American citizen that will like to see a man being basically choked to death with someone's knee, or a 75-year-old man pushed to the point where he's in serious condition. Don't know what his condition is now, but to push down a 75-year-old man, a young man pushing this guy down, it tells you the character of this policeman. We have a lot of work to do. My suggestion would be retrain everybody, every police, every correction officer, every state trooper, retrain them. Make them understand what their job is. I watched a video on YouTube about the New Haven Police Department on Saturday. On Saturday, the chief had all of his police officers in front of the police station in New Haven. And he's talking to the camera, and he said, what we're going to do is we're going to say the oath that all of us took when we became police officers. And they did, in front of a camera. I think New Haven has some of the best police officers in the world because they understand. I mean, New Haven is only so big, but I think they do community policing better than a lot of other places. Now, remember, being born in the 60s, I remember police in New York when we used to live in the Bronx. They knew who my father was because they chose to. They knew who my mother was, my grandmother. If we were out of place, they knew to walk. And if people my age remember, cops walked. They walked the community. They knew every person, from the guy who owned, the Italian guy who owned the bakery, to the Latino who owned the bodega, to the Black people who owned their business and whatnot. They knew their names. They knew where they lived. They knew their children. And they talked. And we, in turn, knew their names. We saw them every day. It was like the postman, how you know who the guy is who's delivering your mail. But back in the 60s, I remember knowing, and the police knowing us. If I was ever out of place, my brother or I or my sister, they would let us know. I'm telling that. You're not supposed to be here. Go home. Or I'm going to tell Margie, my mother. I'm going to tell your mother, you're not supposed to be here. They didn't grab me by the scruff of my neck and drag me home. Their thing, I'm going to tell your parent, because I know your parents, they don't want you over here. That's community policing. As a correctional officer, I used to, on my day off, every single one of my days off, I would go to a high school and speak to the students in Bridgeport. And we got this request from principals and counselors that said that some of these kids were at risk. So I thought it was incumbent upon me, in a position of power, right? Because I'm in a position of power as a correctional officer over the people, the inmates that are in my care. And when people saw me in my uniform, I got looked at a little differently. And I knew that. So I knew I had a responsibility to the kids that were coming up. And one thing I used to always tell the children, the kids that was in high school, I used to tell them, one thing that I never want to see, right? I want to come here and I want to talk to you. I want to give you different avenues to go down as you get through this high school life. Because after high school, you're an adult. You're out here on your own. If you ain't going to college, have an idea of what you want to do. I used to always tell them, I never want to see you on a professional level. And I used to tell them, if I do see you, please don't speak. Because I'm telling you this now. I'm giving you fair warning, right? This world ain't easy. And in my line of work, you don't want to see me. You don't want to see me because my personality has to change to a certain point. I can come and give you five and shake your hand, give you a hug and whatnot. I can't do that if you're dealing with me professionally at that point. And I would have some other officers that would be a little bit more how can I say this? They used to be a little bit more, soft-handed. I was very heavy-handed with these kids because I wanted them to know the reality of this life. And we always talk about the conversation that people of color has to talk to their sons and daughters about in their interaction with police officers, which is insane to me. And it always has been, but I've had that conversation. We shouldn't have to have a conversation that everybody doesn't have. Our interaction with police should be the same as anyone. Because at the end of the day, if anyone truly believes in their heart of hearts that somehow we're different somehow. We speak of race. There's one race. That's Homo sapien. And that's human. We're all human. We're not of another race. We categorize ourselves, and because this is something that it's been done for so long, we categorize ourselves. I'm Latino. I'm African American. I'm white. I'm Italian. No, you're not. That's where you're from. You may be from somewhere. We all look different. We have different cultures, and we prepare our food a little better, different or whatever, and that the way we like it. But I always laugh with my producer, my wife. I said, I have diabetes, right? I don't have black diabetes. I just have diabetes. Because there's a white person that has the same type 1 diabetes just like me, right? Our diabetes is not different. It's the same thing. If someone has, God forbid, cancer, no one gets different cancer. They get cancer because we're human. If you cut us open, we have the same organs. We just look different on the outside. We come from different places. We are all the same. And if we can't get to that point, which is, in my mind, just common sense. It's the ability to rationalize life. If we can't get to that point, if we still look at each other as different because we look different, we're in for a hell of a ride. And you see the kids out here protesting. For all people who are racist and can't stand a different race of people for some stupid reason because they look different than you, look at the crowd, look at them. They're every race, they're every nationality that you can believe. And in a lot of cases, most of the nationality is white. These white kids who's out there saying this is wrong. And a lot of that comes from how they were brought up. Because a lot of parents now, that's my age or younger, are telling their kids, walking around with a Confederate flag, no, that's wrong, right? If you have a Confederate flag, if you believe in that flag, you don't believe in the Stars and Stripes. You're not American. You do not believe in the American culture. You do not believe in this country because that flag represents succession from this country. They didn't want to be a part of the United States for the simple reason that they wanted to have people as property. Think about that a minute. I think we don't think about that enough. Slavery. They actually thought that another human should be as a car, a house, a plot of land. This person should actually be property. I own a human being. How do you, even if you don't believe in God, and I believe in God, right? God did not make this place to say, and we should be slaves to another human being. We worship only him. We're not pets. I own a German Shepherd. I look at no man as an equal to my dog, though I love my dog and I treat him well and I love him to death, right? I don't look at him as being human because he's not. again, I'll go back to it. We're all one race. I'm gonna tell you something. If we run into another race, if we say, okay, the only alien, the only thing that is another race other than us, is if we actually see an extraterrestrial and run into them, and we have close encounters of the first kind. You know what I hope you understand what I'm saying. It's funny because a lot of people can't even understand that concept that someone else is just like me. We have the same thing. We worry about bills. We worry about paying my mortgage, our rent, our car note. We all worry about the same thing. We love our kids just like everybody else loves their kids. But we don't seem to understand it. Some people don't seem to understand that because their kids are special, you know. And you can't tell me, you cannot honestly tell me anybody who thinks that has a mental illness. Racism, to me, is a mental illness. If you cannot look at another human being and say this person is just like me, as in the aspect of being a human, same fears, the same joys, the same things that make them laugh, then you're mentally ill. If you can look at somebody and say, my God, she's from Puerto Rico. It's not like me. I'm from America. That makes me different, doesn't it? You know, someone's from another country and we say, well, can't be like me. He's from Italy? What the heck? Now, remember, in the early days of this country, I forgot who came first, either the Irish or the Italian. Whoever came first, the next person that came caught holy hell because they thought they were better than them. I think it was the Irish first. They thought that the Italians, when the Italians came over here, oh my God, not them, they're from Italy, which is amazing to me. You're talking about a place, you're actually talking about a place on a map, right? Or a place on this planet, a plot of land that someone comes from makes them different. A language that is different than yours makes them different. No, they just speak another language that you don't speak. How many times have we seen videos of people talking about speak English, especially to my Latino brothers and sisters? Speak English, you're in America. But we will take our behinds to Cancun, right, Mexico, or we'll go to Puerto Rico, right? We'll go to the Dominican Republic. Can't speak a bit of Spanish, right? Yet we feel we belong there. Oh no, I don't have to speak Spanish. You got to speak English to me because I don't speak Spanish. And so you basically have to consort yourself like I'm doing. You have to speak my language. But when they come here, we're puff out our chests. It's America. Speak this language instead of giving them a chance too. Most likely they can. If they're speaking to another person who speaks their language, it's almost a relief to be able to speak your language. And maybe you speak Spanish or maybe you speak Italian better than you speak English. So you feel a little relief that you don't have to keep searching for your words. You're speaking to a person from your country. They're still human. We're the same race. But we keep playing this game. Look at the protests. This country is a changing. And it's a hard change. We need people to understand that. The average Joe on the street. We must stand up to those who wish to tear us down. If we don't, if we remain silent, all those who say, oh, this is horrible, but stay silent and say nothing, it's worse than the people committing the crime. Because as long as we stay silent, the easier it is for them to keep doing what they're doing. And if we make it a thing, well, it's not happening to me, guess again, it is. No, it's happening, right? The kids have cameras now. Everybody has a phone camera, right? And it seems to be a bit more dramatic if they show a person of color getting beaten or, in poor George Floyd's case, killed, than to show somebody that is not the same color as George Floyd. It's happening. You cannot tell me that these cops are not going into certain areas in this country where economically these people are hurting and there's crime in these communities and stuff, and they're not beating up white kids too. It's just not being filmed. It's happening to everybody. There's a power structure and there's a power struggle that's going on, and we got to get rid of it. And I employ everybody. Keep abreast of what's going on. Do not stick your head in the sand. Do not look the other way, and definitely do not look the other way. My producer's showing me something. That's why I looked over. She's actually showing up cue cards. But it's true what she just wrote. And there's a question that she asked, is how do we protect our children? How do we? And children and for me, the children that are getting older, that can drive their cars, that we have you got to get home by whatever o'clock, because they don't live with us anymore. They live by themselves. If that's not a worry for every household in the United States of America, it should be, because we have no control after they get a certain age when they're out here by themselves. White, black, anything, anybody, any nationality. We are under the gun. There are police officers who should not be armed. There are police officers who should not make it through the academy. And what's amazing to me is that nobody took the time to look at this police officer who had his knee on someone's neck. Let me tell you, I have gone through stuff as a correction officer where I saw another officer about to lose his mind, where I had to step in and go, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And it's just rational thinking, because if you tell another officer, if you do this, right, you may come see me on a professional level, because everything is filmed. And even if it wasn't, and it wasn't when I first started, you can basically ruin your life also. If you cannot take, and any police officer that may be listening to this, give this some thought. If you can't take the pressure of this job, and again, as a retired correction officer in a facility, dealing with people who've been charged with triple murder, getting triple life, should not have any regard for my life, because if you're spending the rest of your life somewhere, why would you care about the guy that's wearing the blue uniform? Our job was almost impossible. A policeman's job is hard. I know that. But I can share no sympathy. I cannot shed a tear for someone who has the resources that we didn't. You don't have to go hard all the time. You have a weapon. You have multi-million people that can come for your backup before you even rush into a situation. And if any law enforcement person is hearing me now, take the time to know the people you're supposed to be protecting. We have idiots and morons all over the place. Law enforcement, we know that. We know there are people out here that's trying to hurt us. Be careful, but don't be an idiot. Don't think you have the ultimate authority over another human being's life. We have no right to take somebody else's life unless ours is in jeopardy. We're supposed to give back the force that is given to us. We are not supposed to say, I'm going to beat you senseless, because I can't, because I choose to. And before I leave, I'm going to say this again. We will always be one people. We are human. All of us. We look different. We come from different places. We have different backgrounds. We have different cultures, so to speak. If we don't start remembering this, if we don't take this to heart, where do we go? Where do we go? It doesn't make any sense. We're beginning to have chaos. Chaos is not good. Chaos will kill us all. And me, I would hate to see it, because this is a beautiful world, filled with beautiful people, filled with my children, my grandchildren. I want my grandchildren and my children to be able to walk this earth feeling that they don't have to look out. They don't have to act a certain way. They can act just like everybody else with common sense and with love in their heart. Because if we don't, we're going to lose those we love. And I thank you for listening to me today. I hope it brought some kind of understanding to some people. For those who didn't make if nothing I said made any sense to you, then I have nothing I can possibly say to you. My thing, if you ever see me, please walk the other way. Because common sense is only common sense. But let me tell you something, common sense ain't common. And I thank you for joining me today. And as I always say, man makes plans, God smiles. God bless you all, and we'll see you again.